Losing fat is one of the hardest things you'll ever ask your body to do. And the worst part is the silence. You cut calories, you sweat through workouts, you turn down dessert, and the scale just sits there mocking you for 2 weeks straight. That kind of plateau is what kills motivation, not the diet itself. The good news is that fat loss isn't some mystery locked behind genetics or expensive supplements. There are specific, repeatable levers you can pull that have been studied in actual human trials, and pulling them correctly can dramatically shorten the timeline between where you are now and the body you actually want. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through 10 of those levers, every single one backed by published research, and by the end, you'll have a stack of strategies you can layer on top of each other to accelerate fat loss without wrecking your metabolism or your muscle in the process. The first strategy is something almost no one talks about outside of physique competition circles, and it's called the protein-sparing modified fast, or PSMF for short. The idea is brutally simple. You push your calories down to a very aggressive low, but you keep your protein intake high enough that your body has no reason to break down muscle for fuel. On a PSMF, your plate is essentially lean protein, things like chicken breast, whitefish, turkey, and egg whites, paired with low-carbohydrate vegetables like spinach, broccoli, asparagus, and cauliflower. Carbs and fats are stripped down to almost nothing. Now, I want to be careful here because this is not a beginner tool. If you're a man over roughly 26% body fat or a woman over roughly 39%, you have enough fat reserves to run a PSMF for 2 weeks at a time, then take 2 weeks off at maintenance calories with normal macro distribution before cycling back. You can repeat that pattern for somewhere between 4 and 12 weeks safely, as long as you're hitting around 0.7 grams of protein per pound of body weight and lifting weights to give those amino acids a reason to stay in your muscle tissue. If you're already leaner than that, don't run it continuously. Instead, use it as a 1 or 2 day per week tool on rest days when your body's energy demand is lower anyway. Done correctly, it is arguably the fastest legitimate way to drop fat while protecting lean mass. If a full PSMF feels too extreme, the second option is to simply run a more aggressive standard deficit scaled to your current body fat. The leaner you are, the more carefully you have to cut, because lean tissue becomes a much bigger percentage of what's left to lose. As a rough framework, men above 26% or women above 39% can tolerate a deficit of 40 to 50% below maintenance. Men between 21 and 26% or women between 33 and 39% should stay in the 30 to 40% range. Men between 14 and 21% or women between 24 and 33% should drop only 20 to 30% below maintenance. And once you're below 14% as a man or 24% as a woman, you really need to keep the deficit between 5 and 20% or you'll start eating into hard-won muscle. The research backs this up. There's a well-known study where subjects ate only 800 calories per day for 12 weeks and still preserved their lean mass because they lifted 3 times per week and kept protein adequate. Another trial had obese men in a 1,000-calorie deficit while strength training, and they lost over 20 pounds of pure fat with their muscle intact. That naturally leads into the third strategy, which is to make resistance training the absolute backbone of your routine. When you're in a deficit, your nervous system and your hormones are essentially asking your body a single question. Do we still need this muscle, or can we get rid of it? Lifting heavy weights is how you answer that question loudly enough for your body to hear. Beyond the obvious aesthetic payoff, every pound of muscle you keep is metabolically active tissue that improves insulin sensitivity, raises your resting energy expenditure, and makes future fat loss easier. The practical rule I want you to follow is this. Protect your strength numbers like your life depends on them. If you were benching 135 for 10 reps before the cut started, your job is to keep hitting that same load for as long as possible. Only drop the weight once you genuinely can't complete the bottom of your rep range, say 6 reps if you're working in a 6 to 10 range, and even then drop in small increments of 5 to 10 pounds. Don't preemptively lighten the bar just because you feel a little drained from being in a deficit. That mental discipline is what separates someone who finishes a cut looking lean and full from someone who finishes looking smaller but soft. The fourth strategy is one of the easiest to implement and one of the most underrated. Start every meal with a salad, a serving of vegetables, or a low-calorie broth-based soup. There's a stretch reflex in the stomach that signals fullness based partly on volume, not just calories, so loading up on high-volume, low-density food before your main course quietly reduces how much of the calorically heavy stuff you actually eat. Tomato soup, miso, mushroom broth, and clear vegetable soups work beautifully here, as long as they're not loaded with cream. Same for salads. Keep the dressing light, because drowning lettuce in ranch or olive oil completely defeats the mechanism. If you're short on time, frozen mixed vegetables sautéed in a tiny amount of oil with seasoning are nutritionally identical to fresh and take about 4 minutes. And if you have absolutely no time even for that, drinking 16 to 20 ounces of water before your meal triggers a similar, smaller version of the same effect. Strategy 5 is fiber, and this one quietly does more work than people realize. Research has shown that adding just 14 grams of fiber per day can reduce total caloric intake by around 10% without any conscious effort, simply because fiber slows gastric emptying, requires more chewing, and provides only about 2 calories per gram while taking up significant volume in your digestive tract. Men should aim for at least 38 grams per day, and women for at least 25 grams. Vegetables are the obvious source, but you can also lean on lentils, chia seeds, raspberries, oats, black beans, and even air-popped popcorn without butter, which is one of the highest fiber-to-calorie snacks you can find. The sixth strategy targets one specific habit that quietly destroys most people's deficits, and that's liquid sugar. The average person consumes somewhere around 270 calories per day in added sugar, and the largest single source for most people is sugary drinks. That's nearly 1,900 calories per week from a category that doesn't even register as food to your hunger system, because liquid calories don't suppress appetite the way solid food does. Cutting them out can produce roughly half a pound of fat loss per week with no other changes. Replace soda with water, tea, black coffee, or diet soda sweetened with aspartame, sucralose, or stevia. The human research on those three is solid, and they don't appear to disrupt blood sugar or gut health in normal amounts. Saccharin is the one I'd be slightly cautious with, since at least one study suggested it may impact glucose tolerance in some individuals. Number 7 is to walk more, and I mean genuinely more. Fat loss is just energy in versus energy out, and most people massively underestimate how much energy a simple long walk burns. A 155-pound person walking at a moderate pace burns around 270 calories per hour, which over the course of a week comes out to nearly 1,900 extra calories or roughly half a pound of fat. The beauty of walking is that it doesn't trigger what researchers call constrained energy expenditure, which is the phenomenon where intense cardio like running causes your body to subconsciously slow down for the rest of the day to recover, fidgeting less, slouching more, and quietly canceling out a portion of what you burned. Walking sidesteps that entirely. Park further away. Take calls on your feet. Walk the dog twice instead of once. Take the stairs. These tiny choices stack into something significant over weeks and months. Strategy 8 is high-intensity interval training, and this is where you spend a small amount of time for a disproportionate caloric return. A typical session, something like 30 seconds of all-out effort followed by 60 seconds of recovery, repeated for 20 minutes, can burn around 500 to 600 calories for a 185-pound person in just half an hour, and the elevated metabolic rate continues for hours afterward through what's called excess post-exercise oxygen consumption. 2 or 3 HIIT sessions per week, layered on top of your strength training, can comfortably account for an extra pound of fat loss every week or two without eating into your recovery the way long cardio sessions do. The 9th strategy is making sure your micronutrients are actually dialed in, because deficiencies can quietly stall fat loss in ways that have nothing to do with calories. Iodine drives thyroid hormone production, which sets your baseline metabolic rate. Zinc deficiency can suppress metabolism so significantly that one documented case showed a woman raise her resting metabolic rate by 527 calories per day, simply by correcting it. Iron is essential for oxygen transport and energy production. low iron tanks workout performance, endurance, and strength. Calcium plays a role in fat cell metabolism, and vitamin D appears to influence appetite regulation, with low levels potentially driving overeating. The challenge is that modern soil depletion, food processing, and water filtration have made it harder to hit micronutrient targets even on a clean diet, so it's worth getting blood work done, and supplementing specifically what you're low in rather than guessing. The 10th strategy is the one that quietly determines whether any of the previous 9 actually work, and that strategy is consistency. Fat loss responds to momentum the way a flywheel responds to torque. Every consistent week makes the next week easier, and every chaotic week resets the system. Yo-yoing between strict dieting and total abandonment is the single most common reason people spend years trying to lose the same 15 pounds. Even after a PSMF block ends, your maintenance phase still needs to be clean eating at maintenance calories, not a free-for-all that erases everything you just earned. Pick the strategies from this list that fit your life, layer them gradually, and stay in the game long enough for the math to compound. If this video gave you a clearer picture of how to actually accelerate fat loss, do me a quick favor and hit subscribe so the next one lands in your feed when it drops. I've got videos coming on the exact protein targets to hit during a cut, the best foods to eat while fasting, and how to structure your training to keep every ounce of muscle while you lean out. I'll see you in the next one.